Almost everyone has heard of Vortex Optics. Do you guys remember the great lineup like the Viper PST Gen 1, the Razors, or the Strike Eagle? These are some of the best bang for the buck optics out there, but here's the thing. The secret to Vortex's success had nothing to do with their products themselves. It had to do with something they had to learn over and over again over time. Let me show you what I mean. It all started with Dan Hamilton. A veteran of the Vietnam War, Dan had opportunities in front of him thanks to the GI Bill. After serving 3 tours in Vietnam, Dan settled into a respectable career that most people would think is a safe bet: dentistry. It was the mid-1980s, and Dan thought that it was the common path and a secure life for him and his wife Margie. But there was only one problem. Dan realized he hated it pretty quickly. And it wasn't the looking into people's mouths and drilling into their teeth thing. He hated the fact that everybody hated coming to the dentist. The consistent stream of unhappy customers was draining on him. But he wouldn't let anyone come to see him and have a bad time. His son Joe Hamilton put it this way.
He hated the fact that everybody hated coming to see the dentist. So he was always trying to find ways to make it a more pleasurable experience. In fact, I remember when we go visit him as a dentist, me and my 2 older brothers, we'd go in there and he had this closet that was just for kids, and it had like every knick-knack toy you could think of, because he was trying to make the kids be less scared of going to the dentist.
You see, even as a dentist, Dan started to curate a customer-centric ethos. Keep that in mind as we continue through our story. While he was a dentist, Dan often visited a local sporting goods store called Wild Birds Unlimited, specifically the Fort Wayne store close to where they lived, to buy supplies for their backyard. Dan, unbeknownst to him, was a quintessential entrepreneur. He looked around and thought, I could open a store like this, I could run this business, and I think it would be a lot less stressful than this terrible dentist job I have. He spoke to the franchise leadership, which only had about 8 stores then, and expressed interest in buying one for himself. They were interested, but they felt that they had too many stores in Indiana at the time. So they suggested Wisconsin as the next best destination, and told him to go check that out. So in a massive leap of faith, Dan sold the dentist practice, and in 1986, packed up his car, drove to Wisconsin, and took over the Wild Birds Unlimited in Middleton, Wisconsin, selling bird feeders and bird seed, as well as a number of other items. He took inspiration from the stories he heard about people fleeing the North Vietnam conflict by boat, heading east, with some even making it all the way to America. They found success despite the odds, thinking if they could do it, then I could do it. That risk tolerance was the first essential ingredient in the Vortex story. So Dan and Margie are now running the Wild Birds Unlimited, and things are going pretty well. They're selling seed, and they're selling feeders, and they're starting to build that loyal customer base. But here's where the next big challenge comes up. Who knew at a shop called Wild Birds Unlimited, customers kept coming into the shop asking for binoculars to watch wild birds? But as a small independent retailer, Dan faced a classic inventory problem. He couldn't afford to stock enough optics from major brands to get good wholesale pricing. It would have been easy and also super risky to take out a massive loan, but that's not what he did. Instead, he took a calculated risk and built on volume.
And he knew as a small retail store, he wasn't getting the best price.
Right.
And he thought, well, I need to have more volume in order to get a lower price. And that's where he had the idea to create a mail order company. The internet wasn't around, so you had to go mail order route. So he started this company called Eagle Optics. And then he started to go to these bird festivals around the country, or just events around the country, have a booth, have his catalog. And so Eagle Optics was inside the Wild Birds Unlimited store. And sure enough, the volume rose and his price got better.
The idea was simple. Sell more optics, buy in bulk, get better pricing, and sell those optics to his customers and other bird shops. This allowed him to offer a better product at a better price, playing the long game from day one. But as he grew this new line of optics called Eagle Optics, he ran headfirst into his old dental practice problem: terrible customer service. When those optics inevitably broke because They did break because some of his customers were avid hunters who would use them heavily. He was on the receiving end of abysmal and painful customer service from other optics manufacturers. We've all been there. Their warranties were full of loopholes and repair times were glacial. Also, the experience was just painful and frustrating, waiting on the phone for hours at a time. Dan Hamilton, drawing on the core belief of doing the right thing, wasn't going to let his customers suffer. He would often just replace the broken product out of his own pocket because he knew that that was the key to loyalty. This frustration led Dan to develop the in-house brand Platinum Class Protection, which was the direct precursor to the modern VIP warranty that we know today. Dan's core belief was this, and I personally think it's the most critical part of the entire Vortex story.
And he always felt it was the right thing to do. So he never did it from a marketing perspective. It became a big marketing tool for Eagle Optics and, of course, the VIP warranty for Vortex, but he always did it because he thought it was the right thing to do. And he said, if doing the right thing is going to cause us to go out of business, which of course it never did, it ended up being the biggest catalyst for our business. But he said, then I'm not meant to have a business. Yeah.
That's the difference. And it's a real biblical principle here. The idea that service isn't a means to an end, it's the end itself. So the Hamilton family and Eagle Optics have their value-based protection plan, and they've built a loyal following. But here's the next big challenge. Eagle Optics was stuck. It was a respected but small house brand tethered to the specialized market of birding and the Wild Birds Unlimited shop. Dan needed more control, more freedom to innovate, and a way to reach the bigger market. So in 2002, Dan and his family, now made up of 4 boys along with his wife, launched Vortex Optics. But in their initial rush to find the next big hit, they didn't commit to a single vision. Instead, they took a shotgun approach, essentially trying to be multiple small brands at once, launching products for every niche they could think of. The collegiate sport oculars were small binoculars printed with college logos, and everyone thought that they would be huge because they would sell them to universities for their sporting events en masse. They never saw the volume of sales that they thought they would see, though, and those also failed to gain any traction. Another product was the Hurricane 7-50, which was a large marine binocular that boasted excellent optics. However, it did not resonate with their customer base, who were not in professions or hobbies that required such specialized equipment for marine biology applications, for example. They were throwing everything at the wall, and this fragmentation created confused brand identities for customers and inefficient operation for the company itself. So after 3 years, the company discovered a couple of things. Number one, they disliked licensing. It was expensive, and licensors dictated what they could and couldn't do with their products, branding, and all kinds of other things. Secondly, the company found itself increasingly gravitating towards the hunting world. This shift was fueled by an influx of hunting enthusiasts joining the company, including the founder's son, Sam Hamilton, getting more and more into hunting himself. And really, when looking at the market, hunters purchased more and were more invested in their products, making economics more favorable in the long term. This combination of passion, interest, and economics started to align everything together. Having multiple brands, however, was diluting their focus. They decided to consolidate everything under one brand. Vortex then became the chosen name, as they already owned the trademark and everyone just seemed to like it. So in 2005, they dropped all previous brands, and after a couple of years to clear inventory, they fully transitioned to Vortex, establishing the brand's current look and feel. Once Dan and the rest of the family and leadership team refocused on the hunting and shooting world, that new focus meant their product development team could really build on products for specific customers for specific tasks. First up, the Diamondback binocular. This was the first hint that Vortex truly understood the market. It became an early hit because it landed at the sweet spot of quality and price point, with great ergonomics to go with it. It was the best bang for the buck that aligned with customer needs, fueling that early sales growth. But the real game changer for unit volume was the Strike-Fire Red Dot. Launched around 2008 to 2009, it hit the AR market just as the AR-15 platform was exploding in popularity thanks to the late 2000s gun scare. Thanks, Obama. It became the single best-selling product by unit volume in a matter of just months. But why is that? Well, Greg, I'm glad you asked, because it gave the surging AR community an affordable quality option, and it wasn't overpriced, it wasn't junk, and it came with that VIP warranty that Vortex was becoming known for. Next up, there was the Viper PST Gen 1. Launched around 2010, this scope became an industry disruption. At the time, if you wanted a long-range tactical scope with features like first focal plane reticle, illumination, and turrets that matched the reticle units with either MOA or MRAD, you had to pay thousands of dollars. The PST changed the game by offering all those premium features for under $1,000. This was what many at Vortex called the tipping point. It was essentially a Ferrari for a Ford price. This scope was so successful, it forced competitors and retailers to take Vortex seriously as the genuine player in the tactical optics world that they were. Finally, after the massive success of the Viper PST, Vortex released the Razor HD Gen 1. It proved internally that they could design and build a top-tier, world-class premium tactical rifle scope. It gave the team confidence to step outside their comfort zone and compete with the biggest names in the world. A confidence that years later would lead them straight to a monumental contract with the US Army to supply the XM157 optic. Nowadays, Vortex does its best to provide optics to as wide of a range of customers as possible. On the low end, you've got the Crossfire and the Diamondback series again. These are tough, clear, and won't cost you an arm and a leg. They're great for your first hunting or for your first range toy. But then, if you go all the way up to the Razor HD line, which is what serious competitors and snipers use when they want to see the ticks crawling on the back of the deer. People also love the Strike Eagle. It's built around being a true one-power LPVO. So one moment you're running it like a red dot up close, the next you're zoomed in all the way at 8 power using the handy included throw lever. They also have one of the only true holographic red dots on the market with their AMG UH1 Gen 2, often nicknamed the Huey. Unlike most of their other small optics, which are traditional LED-based red dots, the Huey uses laser technology to project a holographic reticle onto your field of view. This puts it into the same technological category as the famous sights made by EOTech that I'm always drooling over when I open Instagram. The Viper PST Gen 2 is the one that punches above its weight, and it gives you almost all the features that a much more expensive scope give you, like an easy-to-use knobs, crystal clear glass for long-range shooting, but it only costs a fraction of that. Plus, the biggest reason people love the Vortex scope is their warranty. If you break it, drop it, or even drive over it, then they'll fix it for you, no questions asked. Just call them up and they'll take care of you. Throughout this journey of product development, there has been a big secret that I alluded to at the beginning of the video, and here's the cool thing. It actually didn't have much to do with the product. Don't get me wrong, having a good product was a huge part of it, and I'm not talking down their products at all. But my question is, how did they succeed and achieve steady growth over the long run? The answer is the long game, or what the current president and CEO, Joe Hamilton, calls the infinite game. As we have learned through this story, Vortex's success isn't one big overnight successful product like a lot of other companies in this space. It was the accumulation of all the years of small, correct choices. Dan Hamilton didn't make decisions based on the next quarter's profit. He made them based on what was right for the next decade. The entire strategy is built on a single compelling idea, that every positive interaction with a customer or retailer is like compounding interest. Kind of like your 401k or paying your mortgage. Dan's strategy with retailers was,
and he goes, it's going to take a really long time, but eventually one retailer is going to give us a chance. And when they get a chance to work with us, they're never going to want to leave. They're always going to want to stay with us. When a customer buys one of our products and they have any interaction with us before, during, after the sale, they're going to fall in love with the fact that we love serving them. And he said that will compound over time.
This philosophy manifests itself in the fact that they hire people who share the biblical value of service is a superpower, not a subservient job, because they operate on the simple core belief our product is not the hero, the customer is the hero. Let me give you an example. When a customer sent a pair of damaged binoculars that their dog had chewed up, the employees not only fixed the binoculars under the VIP warranty, but they also designed and sent back a custom Vortex branded dog chew toy in the shape of binoculars. Now, did they start a whole new line of dog chew toys? No, they just did this for this one customer. This little gesture is proof that service itself is not a marketing ploy, but it's an end into itself. This is how Vortex has grown into the optics brand that we know today, with fans and great products across the country and around the world. They've created a sense of loyalty, and that has compounded over and over into a flywheel that drives the business forward. They're not the only company that's done that either, and if you guys want to learn more about another awesome brand that has started small and has grown into a brand that almost everybody seems to love when they buy from it, go check out this video all about Rise Armament right here. I'll see you over there.